Dale Ross and Jim West. That would be me, Jim West, and Dale. How you doing, Dale?
Pretty good.
Just another week in paradise. I always, I
Yep.
was told some bit on my Facebook page. My favorite day of the year is the very first Friday of high school football, and I do mean that. It's just something about getting out there and getting to see some old friends and see how they're doing, and just seeing how kids have progressed. And
Yep.
uh, Dale, you've had many. I mean, over the years, and you played back in the '70s and
Yep.
up through, you know, in high school, and as a spectator for, I guess, for 40 years. So, do you still get that feeling when it comes to that first Friday night?
I get it every Friday night. Um, there's a certain feeling I get when I walk on the field, and it's uh, it's sort of the same feeling I had when I played. Um,
Right.
it's an invigorating feeling that goes deep in you. So yeah, it's. I mean, the first is the first Friday night any different? It's hard to tell because honestly, the level is so high uh, with just being in that atmosphere, uh, and you miss it. So I guess the biggest thing is you get that hit of boy. It's been months since it's felt like this.
Exactly. Exactly. I always like going to different places if I can. I was hoping to be able to go to Northeast Guilford to watch them play Western Guilford this coming Friday, but unfortunately, I'm going to stay pretty close to home. Probably go somewhere in Chapel Hill, is my guess. But still,
Yeah,
it's fun going to new places too. Do you pretty much stay in Mecklenburg County for the most part, don't you?
I would say probably 70%. Yeah, and then if you really narrow it down, it probably gets up to about 85% of the surrounding counties,
Right.
the counties that touch. Although I do go over to Cleveland County usually once or twice a year, um, at least over the past, I'll say, decade. It's been, I'll probably catch two games in Cleveland County. Now that includes, of course, playoff time, etc. Um, and then there's a small percentage that I get out beyond that range, but not as much as say 15 years ago, uh, when I was covering the state a lot in business. I would find myself on many a Monday somewhere, and there was a rain out, from Friday, and games were played. So up in the Raleigh area, I was able to go to a number of games up there over the years,
Right.
um, because of that. Having games rained out when the hurricanes start, coming in. So here in the next month, we'll start seeing some impact from, or maybe earlier, but we'll start seeing that impact of hurricane weather. And if I'm around in an area and there's a game, I'll usually pick it up. Um, the one thing I haven't done is gone into South Carolina as much lately, and there's good football. Right across the border in York County is just loaded with it. So
Right.
I'm lazy, Jim.
Well, there's also safety reasons. I don't know about you, Dell, but my eyesight, I still have good eyesight, but it's not as strong at nights
Yeah,
as it used to be. I mean, I'm in my 50s, so
yeah,
wear these readers all the time.
exactly. So, me too. Um, so it's a similar situation of that's probably not the biggest thing that holds me back. Um, I don't see my video keeping up with me. Are things keeping up on your end?
No, it's like when you were just talking. Now your lips didn't even move. So
Okay. So,
it's
uh,
interesting. It's mine. I'm moving up and down. Can you? Is my head moving?
yeah, no, you're fine. It's
Okay.
something on my end, and it's either the computer, uh, or it could be my internet. I don't think so. I think it's my computer. But anyway, uh, the things that I like to do though is to try to get games that's going to have that atmosphere to them.
Right.
So, like this week, I'm tossing between two games. West Charlotte's opening up. They're hosting Monroe, and they're going to open up their new stadium as well. So this will be the first home game that West Charlotte has had in, well, it was 3 seasons ago. The last 2 seasons they've had to play at the old Waddell High School for their home games. So they're back in. The stadium was ready last year, but the parking wasn't ready. So everything's ready. That's a game of interest to me for multiple reasons. Could be a highly competitive game. New stadium. I'm a West Side guy. Uh, I don't hate West Charlotte as much as I did when I was in high school. But then also Friday night is Weddington and Ardrey Kell, which is it's a big rival game, and I want to see Weddington. I think I'd get good atmospheres at both. So
Yeah. Probably for my money, I'd probably go to West Charlotte just because I think that's history making right there.
it is, and that's the one I'm leaning towards. I want to see Weddington, and I'm sure I will see Weddington because they might be the best team in the state. It's going to be interesting to see. Um,
I
so
agree. They're up there. Weddington, Grimsley. I mean,
yeah,
they're really good. And uh, Crest is a 3A school. I mean, they're one of the best in the state.
exactly. It's really funny. One of our uh, well, the guys contribute somewhat. There's two guys in Cleveland County that are photographers that
Right.
get media passes, and one of them, he's he played at Shelby. He played on the state championship team. His son has played, but now his grandson is playing. He's a key running back at Crest. So it's kind of interesting. He's had to go from Shelby to Crest, and now he's going to be covering Crest 100% this year. And we were chatting the other day, and I told him, I said, "Look, man, your grandson playing that's more important than a school allegiance that you had in the past." So you mentioned Shelby. That's kind of, I mean, you mentioned Crest, and it's just funny. We were having that conversation on Friday. I told him he was welcome to come join us on the show sometime. Um, he'd have a lot to contribute concerning Cleveland County, which is, in my opinion, the best football in the state is
Oh yeah,
Cleveland
I agree.
County.
Yeah, it's. I agree with you. It's. I mean, you got four really good. I mean, great programs.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and be honest
They're-
with you, right now they're probably. I'm gonna say the last 3 or 4 years, there's not any county in the state that could even measure with them.
No, I don't think so. Um, so him knowing all the history that's there, with Chase and Shelby and Crest and Kings Mountain and all the good football that takes place there. I figured he might could add some good contributions. We got 3 viewers. Need to make certain we're watching our messages in case anybody
Oh yeah, I better make sure
kind
I
of.
have that.
Yeah, it's a new interface, people. So there's the chat.
It
You
was
s-
funny. You're like right now, your video is like moving in like 5 times speed or something. and you're
Uh-huh.
like your hands are moving like this right here and stuff, and then it slows down. Now
But
it's slow.
the voice is staying correct.
Oh, voice is fine. It's the video. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like
okay.
you got that kind of that max headroom thing going on, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I expect what it is that the video is trying to, it lags, and then it says, well, I got to go into overdrive to catch back up, and that's what's happening. Uh,
I mean, for a second,
I
you're doing look like you're doing some break, some type of break dancing steps, like this right here. So
Amen. Oh, I don't think I could break dance. I don't think I could ever break dance. Maybe when I had the
yeah,
physical ability, I didn't have the talent to do it.
I never had the talent. I mean, we tried. I mean, I was a product of the '80s, but wasn't
Sure.
any good at it.
Well, I was a product of the '70s, but I had
You had the discos.
yeah, but I was not a fan of disco ever. Now, it's interesting that I'll listen to disco a little more now than I would in the '70s. I just kind of, I don't know. I felt like it wasn't music, um, which is wrong. I understand now. Any genre of music is music, and I was just too ingrained in that '60s and '70s rock. Um,
Right.
and so anyway, but when I in the early '80s, I had a couple of guys who worked for me, and I managed a team of about 8, 9 people. I can't remember now how many was on that in that group. But anyway, the two young guys, one of them just passed. It's
Oh,
such a sad thing, but they really introduced me to rap. Uh, I got a huge indoctrination into rap, especially when one of them got a new car, and he's like, "You talk about the beach all the time. Let's ride down to where you go." He just wanted to drive down and drive back to the coast, and so I'm like, "Okay, yeah, we'll go down." And all the way down and all the way back, it was. I think that's why I like the Fat Boys and Run DMC and that kind of stuff. Now it's
Beastie
just
Boys. You start hearing singing some "No Sleep to Brooklyn."
oh man, what a time. But anyway, so I got a little introduced into breakdancing too, but no, I didn't have, I don't have that talent.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cool if they did some high school like on halftime shows where they go back to like the days of like disco or the days of like the beginning of rap, hip hop? I've seen sometimes they do it like in college, but I don't really see it in high school too much.
You mean a theme so that the
Yeah,
kids
like a
come
theme.
dressed like
Yeah,
either the hip hop era, the early
yeah,
hip
just
hop era, or
or
the
disco. You did
disco?
the big old bell bottoms.
But with the disco, then they have to get platform shoes and all that other kind of junk.
I think the reason
Oh,
why the disco era went out is because everybody was so uncomfortable. Their feet hurt all the time.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, when I was in school, there was the parachute pants. You remember the parachute pants
I
and
do.
the member only jackets?
Yep.
And now I've got an old wrinkled shirt. So people are like, why is your shirt wrinkled? And I'm like, if you ever tried ironing, they're like, yes. And I said, I got better things in my life to do than iron. So I wear wrinkled shirts, it's
So
something to
I
do.
got to tell you this. I went up to my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. She was in school at Chapel Hill, and she stayed in Morrison. And I had a banjo, and I was also coaching football. So I had a whistle, and I played banjo a little bit. And I remember taking my banjo up and sitting outside and up on I forget which floor she was on, seventh, something like 5, 7, something like that. and I was saying, listen, I can play disco music because disco always had some kind of whistle blowing or something. So I'd strum something on the banjo and then blow the whistle, tap the drum head. I'm like, yeah, I'm making a disco. So I was trying to state how uncoordinated in music disco was, but I was dead wrong. So anyway, I mean, I know now today I was dead wrong in that. If you actually listen to it, some of the music behind it's can be, I won't say complicated, but pretty interesting.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. We talked a lot about music.
Yeah, we talk about fishing, or we can talk about football or barbecue or
Well, Jim,
whatever you want.
I wouldn't mind talking a moment about charter schools and not
Okay.
so much we had a good back and forth
Yeah.
about charter schools. It was beyond what maybe I would like to talk about
Yeah.
right now. Uh, and I'll just kind of uh, set this up with on talking preps. A topic came up about charter schools, and there was a few, man, blah blah blah, and um, of course about the lottery and basically people questioning whether the lottery is legit. And uh, Alex, who's in a charter school, said absolutely, it's legit. And anyway, I received a message this morning, a DM on Twitter from a head coach and at a charter school, and I'll go ahead and say who it is, Austin Trotter. And he's like, they're wrong, talking about Chris and Grice. Things, may have been right 20 years ago, and certainly was, but things are much different today. And so we had a little bit of conversation about that, but then we kind of drifted off onto the merits of a charter school in general and who might be able to
Right.
attend, et cetera. Uh, and so first, I thought I would just so that's the setup for why discussion here.
Yeah.
And I want to task Jim. You understand auditing
Right.
and far better than I do, though I do some forms of auditing in another manner. Um, uh, I think one, I'd like to do some digging just to find out what the setups are across the state. Are they the same? Does the lottery ran the same? My understanding is that it is, and I get my information. I don't remember the guy's name, but he's principal at Mountain Island Charter, and I was up there interviewing uh, Robert Washington and Tolson.
Mhm.
She's a teacher in the school and does a lot of the admin uh, for the football team. And while I was waiting, the principal came up and we got to talking, and so I started questioning him about the lottery. And he explained to me how the lottery was ran and the school had no influence in it. And he, as a principal, had no influence in it. Um, So, of course, that's one person who's in a position to know, and you have to obviously question, well, yeah, that might be what he says, but is that truly the case? Um, Alex says yes, and he's in that system. And Austin says yes. Coach Trotter says that he told me, he said he's even had parents that wanted to get their athletes into the school. And was there anything that they could do to make it happen? Could they donate money to the school? The answer was no. So these are all people saying that, But I'd like to. I'm still a fact checking kind of person that likes to have as much verification on something as possible.
Right.
Understand the standards that might be in place for a lottery. You
Right.
raised some good questions or some points about just the general how many people apply. So, how many slots are available versus how many people apply. And then, if I forget the number you use, but as if there's 100 spots and 120 people apply, and most of the people that apply are males, then you're obviously going to be loading in a bunch of males or change that to a lot of athletes because
Right.
females are athletes too. So
Oh, sure.
that's a good
Sure.
point. Um, so, how many people apply typically for a lottery? That would be an interesting stat to know. I imagine it varies from
Right.
charter to charter.
Right. And when it comes to the auditing side of it, this is what I would do. First thing, you got to gather all your information to determine what the regulators would require, which would probably be the from the state of North Carolina's. I think North Carolina legislature passed it into law. The allows the at one time it was only 100 schools across the state. Now it's that cap has been removed. First thing is how can you uh, what are the parameters? Is it written? Is it required by the North Carolina Charter Association, whatever the Charter School Association, to regulate these lotteries? Is it given down to the actual LEA, which would be the actual charter school?
Mhm.
Just finding that out is the first thing. And let's say that they're required by law or by state statute to have a uh, random selection. At that point, you would have to see what the system of controls are with each one of the LEAs. The system of controls are how are these how are these selections made? Are they? Is there any type of influence? Is there's any type of weighted parameter that's not part of the state statute? Stuff like that. You have to look at it and see if they uh, follow it to the T. Is there any type of paper trail? Are there any observers during the lottery? I will say, with me being an auditor, I consider myself to always to be objective and to practice what's called professional skepticism, where you do not necessarily think or or not believe your clients. You want to, you don't know if what they're saying is correct or not. You got to be objective when you look at stuff, and
Mhm.
then you want to have evidence. And the one thing I'll say is really dangerous about when people say, "Well, I don't think all these lotteries are random," unless you have evidence to support that. It's probably best not to say anything. I'm like you. I like evidence. If I find out somebody there is some type of weighted variable that's not approved by the North Carolina Charter School Association or by the North Carolina Legislature, that is a finding. And at that point, we got to understand what that finding is. Is it material or is it immaterial? Uh, what are all of the parameters involved in it? And
Mhm.
that's what you have to do. You have to see what your guidance are, and see if the LEAs are actually adhering to what they're doing. Is there a paper trail? Are there observers? And go forward. I don't have any evidence whatsoever to show that what they're saying is what they're doing is incorrect. I think there's other variables though that come in play, uh, like with the local charter schools here. I don't know if this is across the state or not. I think anybody that's within a 25-mile radius can go to that charter school. I
That's
know we
that's a standard with charter schools in North Carolina, at least.
right. And with that, you got to think about, well, it may not be weighted. Everything they're doing is legitimate. Can every kid within a 25-mile radius actually have the capacity, the means to get from point A to point B in time every day. And I hate to say this, but money talks a lot of times. People that with more affluent backgrounds or from more socially economically diverse families, a lot of times they have the means to get their kid to point A to point B. Other people, when they're working third shift, or they're working 2 or 3 jobs, or maybe they have a mother or a father that's on disability, they may not have the means. They may not have the transportation to get them from point A to point B. And even if they do, a lot of times they can't actually go stay over after for extracurricular activities. All that stuff has to come into play.
Well, it comes into play certainly, but not in the selection process.
No, it's not the selection
The
process. It's just
application process, yes.
I think a lot of
And
times people are focusing on the process itself as opposed, which is wrong. They should be really focusing on the mitigating circumstances, if that makes any sense.
well, I think I can understand a concern of the process,
Right.
because my only and the lottery is done by computer, as I understand. And is it operated by a third party person? I don't know, or third party entity. So, in other words, it's not. Is it?
Ernst and Young or whoever might be doing
Yeah.
it.
Is it anybody? Is it Dale Ross that's doing it, running the program to generate it, or is it someone? Or is it the charter school itself just running a program that randomly does it? There's the closer that gets to the entity being, say, maybe or the charter school, then the more likely some variable can change and not make it as um, clean. So I
Right.
know you understand that in auditing. So if a third party and a trusted third party is doing the management of the lotteries, that kind of takes out of the hands the school completely. And the only change to the randomness is if you are an employee at the school, then your child can go to the school. So they automatically can go in. So
Right.
that's the only variable that changes. Other than that, I'm expecting it's probably got some kind of randomness for each grade because they may have so many slots that they can handle in one year for a certain grade. Each it may change, may not be the same number of kids in each grade because the big thing about charter schools is they're attempting to maintain a good student teacher ratio. So they can't just load up a grade and overload that ratio.
Right.
So I don't. I'm not sure how that part goes. I'd like to find out. Um,
Right.
I'd like to have some better certainty, though. I trust those that have told me. I I trust. I believe those. What I've been told, and I don't believe I've been lied to. Uh,
Um,
Sometimes people may not know everything behind what they've said. Um, so Coach Trotter may not know that, oh, somebody can do this. I'm not saying they can. I'm just saying that's why it's good to look into the process. Um,
I'll give
so,
you an example of something. Whenever you go to Academy Awards or something, usually it's like an Ernst and Young or Deloitte or PricewaterhouseCoopers that tallies all the results and everything.
hmm
That's called a what's called agreed upon procedure, where you're not doing any type of financial audits. What you're trying to do is you're doing a making sure that things are certified. What's the people that voted actually voted or is tabulated correctly, and you'll actually have CPA firms are hired to do stuff like that. with the charter schools, the one thing I would ask, and I don't know the answer. I don't know if it's feasible or not, is whether when they do the lottery, if any of the results are certified by a third party.
Right. So are you saying another third, so a third party or A or B, a third party runs the lottery and then another third party certifies it,
What you
or
what you
the
what you
school
can
runs the lottery and a third party certifies it?
exactly, that's what it comes down to. The school would do the actual the lottery itself. But before that happens, the all of the CPA firm or whomever it might be would check to see the systems of control are working. Make sure there's no weighted average. Making sure that all the parameters are correct. Making sure that there's no typos or glitches or
Right.
anything that would maybe deter a person from being selected.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it'd give you reasonable assurance.
You'd hope that typos wouldn't enter into it, because then that would indicate that it's not random, that it's actually looking at certain things other than
Oh,
a
sure.
randomness. And the only thing I would think that you might try to do in the lottery that would not be so random would be to try to balance your males and females that you have. Um,
Right.
so
Oh,
you might say we're going to accept X number of males and X number of females. Um, I don't know if you go deeper than that, uh, trying to handle different, peoples, Hispanic or African American or whatever. If you're going to try to do that, I wouldn't fault anyone for doing it, nor would I praise anyone.
it's
Other
it's a
than,
tricky
yeah,
situation. Of course, it all goes back to the North Carolina legislature. Uh, it's it is what it is. But the
yeah,
one thing I
exactly,
would say the CPA with the lottery, I will say with the selection process, the lottery part is random, and then the non-random part is like if you had a parents or excuse me a teacher that has a son that wants to go to that school, they can go to it. Also, anybody that's on the board of directors of that charter school can go in. That's something else I'll mention that because I did learn that
right,
over the summer. If somebody was coded incorrectly, where they're saying, "Well, little Johnny's father is on the board of directors," when little son Johnny wasn't, his father wasn't on the board of directors, and he was selected to attend the school on a non-random basis when that was incorrect. That's something the CPA firm can pick up.
yeah. I would, now I may be wrong, but what I would expect is that the school would know that, okay, we've got these students that are going to come in because they are attached, their family is attached to the school. So
Right.
that's going to take up, so let's say we've got, say they got to fill 250 seats for this coming school year. So, and there's 12 people that are attached to the school that they would put in. So instead of 250, they would do a lottery for 238. That those students would never go into that
Right.
batch. They would be automatically assigned in, and then the lottery would fill the other slots. That's the
Right.
way I would expect that to happen. Thus, nobody could bypass that system
Right.
by trying to, incorrectly put information in on who they are.
Correct.
Um, I think now I don't know. Again, that's what
Yeah. And
that's what an
it's
audit would tell us, right?
Yeah, exactly. And a third party can make sure all that happens and make sure they can sign up reports, saying that these people were non-randomly selected because they were associated with teachers or board of directors or whatever that looks over somebody of governance. I don't know if janitors would, if their kids would actually go in or not. So their staff, that's always,
I would think they
that's,
would.
or cafeteria workers.
I would think if that's their job, they work at the school.
Right.
Um, it's not like in I expect even probably in CMS it works that way. If you're a cafeteria worker at say Olympic High School over here, then I don't know. I don't want to go out on a limb, but I would
Right.
think you would allow them in the same situation here. But those are all good questions,
Yeah.
um, or good points. If they are audited, would we be able to find that point out? How easily would it be to find out if an audit process does take place?
It's not too hard with a lot of times with these agreed upon procedures. The audit is done in tandem with the actual acts. Like when everything is loaded up to before it's called what's it called preliminary field work. The state will or whoever it is accumulates everybody that want this applied to the school. First thing is the CPA firm has to make sure that if there's if the report says 200 people have applied for 100 spots, making sure that 200 is complete and accurate. If it's 240 and 40 people for whatever reason are mysteriously left out of the reports, uh, that's that's something that would be captured in an audit. I
Hmm.
mean, it's this day and age is pretty easy to do that. You could probably have look at the submission forms. It's all probably electronically entered in.
Yeah,
You could compare those names, and if you see six people that were not on that list for selection for lottery, you ask questions, and you find out, well, this person here, the parents have moved outside the 25-mile radius. This person right here, they decided they don't want to go to the charter school; they're going to a private school, and so forth. Uh, that's kind of what you want to do. You have some type of reconciliation. And then when the lottery happens, this is where the CPA firm, right before it happens, they want to make sure that everything is in there. And then they're going to actually look at how the system works. The test, they'll do the test of controls, make sure everything was randomly selected, whether it's a random number generator or whatever it might be. And once that's done, the auditors can say, I feel everything has been done in conformance with the North Carolina legislature and the North Carolina Charter School Association and move on. Again, I don't know if this process is going on or
sure.
not, but that would take
Well,
a lot of doubt out.
it should be going on, and if it's not, that's on our North Carolina legislature for not requiring it and enforcing it.
Right.
And the enforcement should be through audits. So that would be on them, not the schools. Though the schools do have some ethical, you know, you would think they would be bound to ethics to operate properly anyway. But if you take controls out, obviously that leaves room for people to. If you give anybody wiggle room, I guess is the best way to put it, then humans will sometimes take it. And so, yeah, it would be good to find these things out. I think it would answer a lot of questions for people
Right.
uh, that have concerns about about the law, about the charter schools, and uh, there's also talk about having them play up in classifications, which I don't think's right. Not if there's a proper audit. Not if, let's say, legitimately the kids that are on the teams are legitimately there through the whole process. Then they should be treated by ADM, just like all other schools.
Right.
That's my feelings. Now, if it turns out that there's wiggle room. So if it was a situation where they said, okay, it's totally random, except for we're going to allow football teams got, let's say 50 players, then we're going to allow 15 students to be football players so that when we do our selection, there'll be 15 players that can get in. then something like that's taking place, then absolutely they should have to play up, because now they are they definitely have an ability to bring in athletes.
Right.
Whereas if it's a random process, you get lucky. Um, if you pick up an athlete. And I've heard of several situations, Jim, where there were athletes that wanted to go to several of the charter schools around us, and they couldn't get in. They didn't make the lotteries. So
Oh yeah.
and it, so
And that's the
anyway,
thing. It's always, to me, it's always dangerous making accusations or even alleged, you know, allegations about it, about the impropriety, unless you have the evidence to support it. And
exactly. I don't have the evidence to support it either
yeah,
way, right? The evidence is we actually know, we can see. So we've
right.
seen the process and we understand it. That's evidence. To be told the way the process works, that's kind of evidence, but it's subject to
There's transparency issues. Now, I have no problem
right,
if someone says I don't know, understand the transparency. I don't, I can't see it. I can respect that. That's fine with that.
yeah,
And I can't. I mean, obviously, I don't know exactly what all goes on. I don't see the. It's, to me, it's not quite transparent, but I haven't been looking for it either. To be
right,
honest with you, I don't. To me, the charter school part is not really that big of a deal. Uh, I have other issues with charter schools, as I've talked to you in the past,
right,
but I support their kids. Their kids to me mean just as much as the kids from Charlotte Catholic, the parochial schools, or
right,
the kids that go to North Stanley or West Mecklenburg. Uh,
exactly,
those kids deserve to play. And the thing about moving the kid, like if you move a small charter school up to 3A or whatever, there's some health issues, there's some danger issues. You're exposing these kids, especially in football, to really have some serious injuries on that. There's a
exactly.
safety issue. And to just say, well, we're going
Yeah,
to move them up, based on some type of formula that's real easy to understand, or not, yeah, real easy to understand, but really doesn't make that much sense. It's one thing. I'm not against a multiplier for like the parochial schools
no, because
into
they
the
can handle it. When
yeah,
you look at the parochial schools, they have the student body, the participation of students to be able to handle a step up in classification. They may
right,
not perform as well, though Charlotte Catholic has proven otherwise, but they can handle it. Charter schools, they don't have the they don't have as large a body, a student body to pull from. Uh, you go over to Mountain Island Charter, and um, it's a big charter school, but it really reminds you of a big elementary school.
right.
It's not like they've got a gigantic
Was it like
population.
is it like 520 kids or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but I know the length of the building's not, terribly long, and it is two-story. Um, uh, that might be right on the number, but it's definitely 1A ish numbers, ADM
Right.
numbers. And to force them up, okay, 2A maybe, though I don't think that's right, but to make them play, say, within the established conferences of the NCHSAA that are around them, um, which would mean like Mountain Island Charter either going into an Iredell County 3A, playing South Iredell and those schools, or dropping over into the conference with Huff and Mallard Creek and those guys. And how unfair would that be?
Oh yeah, it'd be a disaster. I'm not against doing a very mild multiplier for the charter schools either. Maybe make do like a 1.25 for whatever multiplier on it. But I
Hmm.
think if there's any type of advantage with that, it would not be with these large programs where you have to have 35 kids to play football. It might be with a basketball team or something like that where you can get away with having 9 or 10 pretty good athletes. But football, which is my main concern, is I think it's a safety issue moving those kids up.
Exactly. Football, rugby,
Oh gosh,
if that happened to
yeah,
become anything that's got contact in it like that. But baseball, your country club sports in baseball and basketball, which are smaller team sports, in no contact, uh, potentially no issue there. Yeah, I can't think of where you would have issues. Uh, the charter school may not have as much talent as a Huff on the basketball court, but yeah. Anyway,
I think
that's
with the country club sports, I can see a multiplier on that, especially if you have like in my area, the kids that go to the charter schools tend not to be on free and reduced lunch. It's a very low percentage. It's like I'm gonna
hmm
say it's probably three times less than the actual LEA or the Orange County Schools LEA.
right.
At least two times less. I forgot. I think our county LEA free or reduced lunch, which is really low, believe it or not, it's like at 38%. I think the local charter school was around 14 or 15%. Uh,
hmm
there are some advantages to that because these parents have the means to get private lessons or private coaching and stuff like that from
Right.
charter schools. But I can see doing a multiplier based on it. Like if there's a huge advantage when it comes to economic status, but not for football. Football would be a safety issue.
Right. And I have a little bit of a problem of having a school in one conference for one sport
Yeah,
and then another conference for another sport. Now, maybe the country club sports, it doesn't matter,
right.
but baseball, I think the people around the base, say baseball as an example, uh, would want to play the same teams the football team did because maybe they lose to them in football, but they can beat their pants off in softball and baseball, uh, and or soccer. So I know from my days in high school that carried over each of the sports. You still maintain those rivalries with the other schools, and you would want to you'd want to have your get back with a sport that you're good at, because you got beat by someone else in a sport that they're good at. So if you start separating schools out of conferences based on the uh, the sports that they're taking place in, other than the true country club sports, swimming, tennis, golf, um, what else centers around that?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Was it lacrosse? Any kids that do lacrosse now?
Yeah, but I don't know if I'd call lacrosse a country club sport.
Oh, I would.
I tend to think of it as the way it's growing here. I would put it in the same, just like rugby is starting to grow here. That I would think as it matures and gets enough support in the different schools, it would play right along in that. With the football and soccer and basketball and baseball, uh, of competition with your rivals, etc. But lacrosse is growing here, so I'm expecting it one day that would be the case. I can understand your call on it for being a country club sport.
It's well, I can see your point too. I'll see that point. What I do with football, I like having like you. I like having conferences together. Although I've always be nice to have a football only conference. Well, for football, I'd like to go away from conferences and doing regions, where you got to play five. You'll have maybe 8 regions across the state, and each year and we'll have how many classifications? 6, 7, whatever it is now. 4 currently, 6, 7 in the future. and you're required to play five teams within your region in your in your classification, and then you can play five games whatever you want to, um, and then let max preps do the sorting out for who gets in and who doesn't.
The problem with that would be travel. Um, the potential of travel, I guess.
But just for football only. That's I wouldn't do that to the other sports.
Yeah, again, I think it gets away from my, and I may be wrong in this, but I know personally I like to have that ability to roll from football to basketball
Yeah.
and have the same common opponents who were beating you up in football, and now you're going to run up and down the court on them in basketball. That's I think that helps maintain those
Right.
rivalries. That helps with those rivalries. That's an interesting concept though that you bring
Well, I
up.
should say you have to play at least five teams within your region classification. You can play 10 teams in your region classification if you wanted to. And these, just as long as you do under certain criteria, you can't. If you're a 4A school, you can't load up with four 1A cupcakes. If you do, max preps will bite you off for having a horrible strength of schedule.
But getting from a game, getting to a game, it's more critical in time
Yeah.
in Mecklenburg County than getting from, because you have less traffic. But getting to a game can take, if you go from one part of the county, say the southeast part of the county, up to the northwest part of the county, go up to Huff, say from Independence or Ardrey Kell up to Huff, that's a long time. That's a long bus ride in traffic. There's no getting around it.
Right.
So if you extended that range of a region for them to go up into Iredell County and over into Lincoln, or I don't know how far that range would go for the region for here, but those would be the concerns, and I would expect they would be similar in Wake County.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the only problem, is the travel time, and even though you limited it to football, that still puts a travel issue and getting back from that travel issue for JV, who will still have to attend a class on Friday. So
How many 4A schools do you currently have in Mecklenburg? It's about 18 or 19 or so, isn't it?
it's a little over 20, isn't it? 21?
Because I know West Charlotte and West Mac are the 3A schools. Everything else is 4A.
Oh, you mean 4A? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. West Charlotte and Harding. Is Harding 3A? Harding's in that Queen City.
Harding may have
Harding's
moved
been
down to
moved.
3A. I can't remember. I think they may have moved down to 3A.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think because they're into Queen City with
That's right.
West Charlotte.
Because they got last year they were in another conference and they got moved over, if I remember right.
Yeah, they were in the South Mech Conference, the South Mecklenburg Conference. Yeah, we're obviously 95% or so 4A here. And gosh, I mean, the county could almost be a region all by itself, obviously.
You like if you had a classification, you might have two regions within Mecklenburg County.
Yeah. See, if I had my way, Mecklenburg County, what they would do is that the conferences would be more weighted with putting all the better teams together, instead of trying to put some parity in the conferences, instead of spreading it so much. I'd had this conversation with, and actually it was brought up to me by Barry Shuford. Um, he was suggesting that when he was at Olympic, that what he thought was that there should be a power conference in Mecklenburg County where the best teams are put into that conference. And he just thought that would be better football, better. It would be better overall, was his thoughts. And I kind of agree in some way to that. Uh, With as many schools this year, yeah. If you did regions, that'd be interesting to see how the regions broke out.
Gotcha.
Uh, it's a good idea, Jim. You mentioned on classifications. I'm not a fan of too many classifications. I thought the most we should have is six. Um, so I don't know. I think even more so, and see if we got any. We don't have any viewers on right now, but I'm a little worried about the season. About foot, I'm a little bit worried about athletics with the state legislature, the way that they're doing things. It was kind of the telltale sign to see things like Alverson leave the NCHSAA. That was a key to me. Some things are not going to be good.
The way I look at it is the North Carolina legislature. I think the issue started out with a certain representative not getting his way, Q Tucker following the letter of the law, and I fully support Q. She did the right thing. Certain
Mm-hmm.
representative having hissy fit, causing committees, and they took a very probably the best association in the United States and made it where it's not nearly as strong. I'm not going to say it's the worst now. It's not the worst. You still got Q there, but it took a lot of the ethics out of the piece. Uh, I think it's less transparency. I thought the association did a pretty good job with transparency. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Probably the biggest issue that was going against the association was that endowment plan. I think
Yep.
a lot of people, especially during COVID, are like, "I want to get my hands on that money."
I think the endowment plan needed
Did you?
some more transparency.
Yeah.
That's where transparency could have come in and play a bigger part. I agree with you. The pandemic got people thinking about the money and what's it there for, and why aren't we getting our hands on it? If people had a clue of a glimpse, even of the way other states run their associations, they'd have a huge appreciation of the way the NCHSCA ran prior to this season.
There was a female representative. I think she was in Iredell County or Stokes County or
Yep,
somewhere.
yep,
Vicky
yep,
Sawyer or Vicky somebody.
yeah,
I don't remember. And she made a statement. She's like, there is no reason why the North Carolina High School Athletic Associations would ever allow any private schools to be a member of the association. And I responded, tell me one private school is in the association. If you say Charlotte Catholic, Cardinal Gibbons, or Christ the King, or Bishop McGinnis, you're not telling the truth because they're not private schools. They're parochial schools. And there's a big difference between the two.
exactly.
And if you want to say that it's not a traditional public school, I'll give it to you on that. Or it costs money, I'll give you to that. But calling parochial schools private is a slap in the face of their parochial schools.
Exactly.
Sometimes
It
I think
it
people talk, they don't even realize that they're insulting other people.
they don't well, they talk and they don't understand what they're talking
Yeah,
about. That's the worst thing is you got people making a decision on something that they don't have a foundation to be able to make a decision on.
yeah,
Um, and their foundation is nothing but untruth.
right.
hearsay and untruth, which is what hers was. Um, and I believe many people in or many people in our legislature that push this thing, uh, they don't understand. They don't understand the process. Just like a lot of people, just typically our normal fans that we come across, they don't understand the process of the way a Charlotte Catholic operates and where the students come from and et cetera. So, yeah, but to call it a private school, that was, we had our own talking preps last year or the year before, the season before. I can't remember which season it was. I believe it was 2 seasons ago. And it bothered me to hear the things she had to say, because being someone that knows what's going on, you could tell she was speaking 100% from that no foundation of fact is the best way to put it. She had no facts under her, and she didn't understand the facts she was putting out. So
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of times these politicians try to uh, run on these populist beliefs because other people were angry, whatever, and they try to create some type of answer to it, and it's just not there. So
exactly.
anyway,
So well, we'll see. She wants to kick them out, and I think anybody that adheres to the rules should stay in. And quite honestly, I'll say it again, we have more ethics problems in public schools than we do in the parochial schools.
oh yeah, I agree with you.
We have far more ethical issues of recruiting and legitimacy of addresses being used for residents, identification.
Yeah.
There's far more issues with that across. I'm sure it's across the whole state. It's not just here in this area, but across the state. There are issues with that, and you can't point your finger at those same kind of issues at a Charlotte Catholic, as an example, who has a student body that 90+% of the kids have been with each other since since they got into school.
Right.
They've graduated up together. They've stayed together. They're not. It's not like in high school. All of a sudden, you get this influx of a whole new student body or new members into the student body. It's very few. In any that most of the ones that come in are Catholics that moved into the area,
right.
That have moved to Charlotte, and they're going to put their kids in the school. That's where she and the other guy that was on was wrong. And I just don't believe the state legislature investigated this stuff. They just went on the hearsay that they had and made their decisions.
I agree. So, Dale, Garrett's good to see you, man. I was going to see if you guys want to look at maybe start with the 1A rankings, unless, Dale, you had anything else you want to add to the charter school talk?
No, go ahead and throw them up, okay. And we'll be covering charter schools more, Jim. I'm just going to say, let's try to. You understand that audit process, and if you know how to find out what is happening in that regard, what we might be able to uncover, I think that'd be awesome. And I think our some of our members would like to hear it. I know I would.
So,
okay.
Can everybody see the 1A? I see it says you're on the show. Everyone can see and hear you, but I don't know if I got the.
You do now. Right. I had to make it available.
Oh, okay, gotcha. getting some getting some background. I was getting some type
I
of
didn't understand him at all.
yeah. I was going to say I had some feedback that was going on. It was I could hear myself talking like about 10 seconds behind. Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I just couldn't hear Garrett
Okay.
too well.
So I'm going to start here in the 1A East. This right here is the team that everybody should be looking at is Tarboro. Let me make that a little bit smaller. But Tarboro is the only team that, to me, that really matters in the 1A East. Right now, I'd give Tarboro a 75% chance to win the 1A East.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
How about you, Garrett? You want to play devil's advocate? Looks like Garrett's frozen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I look frozen. I look frozen too, but at least my audio works.
Yeah. The rest of the teams, the one team that really surprised me this last week was Bertie. I don't know if you saw that score. They played Northeastern at Elizabeth City. Final score was 47-46 Northeastern.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive. There's one team in here I didn't list. I think it was Pender. I think it was Pender that scored 88 points against Lejeune. It was final score was 88-34. I don't have them listed. If 88's is really good. That's a lot of points. That's more than I've ever seen personally in a game. But allowing 34 points against Lejeune, it makes me wonder a little bit. But really, 1A East, nothing to really see. Tarboro, Northmore, I have as number 2. That's a very good program. That program's on the rise. Now let's talk about the 1A West.
Let me do this.
Yeah. I mean,
there are a lot of good teams here.
Oh, I agree. It's just incredible here. Mount Airy, they're the defending state champions. I think they're just as good as they were last year. Robbinsville, did you see that score against East Surrey?
Yep.
Was it 42-0 or 42-6? Something huge.
I thought it was nothing, but
I think it was 42-0. I mean, that was a statement win. That's the reason why I have Robbinsville number 2. Thomasville is a team that's on the rise, and I think that's good for the 1A West, to be honest with you. That's a traditional powerhouse, just like Mount Airy and Robbinsville, and same thing with Murphy.
Right.
Got Murphy at number 4. Now, Mitchell is a team that historically, until like 15 years ago, Mitchell, they might have a good season, once every 3 or 4 years. But in the last 10 years or so, Mitchell has been a very strong force. They're a current power. Mitchell, I think it was 16-7 over Latin. Does that sound right?
I don't remember the final. I don't know. I don't have that score in my head.
Mitchell won on that. Eastern Randolph, they're solids. I think they lost to Eastern Alamance, but Eastern Alamance is a 3A school. They have talent all over the place. So I'm gonna say after Mitchell, I thought Eastern Randolph was the best of the rest. North Rowan, Starmounts, they're going to be good. The team that I would say to watch out for is Albemarle.
Really,
Albemarle is going to have a good team. They lost, I think, by a point against Ashboro. Ashboro is a 3A school, a struggling 3A school, mind you. But Albemarle has some pretty good defense, and their offense looks a little bit better than normal. I expect Albemarle to beat North Stanley this year in the 1A, 2A battle.
Okay.
So these are my Elite Eights. I took the Elite Eights for this would be like in the teams that make it to the third round. The winners of the fifth round of these groups would play in in the championship in the 6 week of the playoffs. So, anybody, Garrett, or any teams here that you thought deserve to be on there in 1A East?
Honestly, your list looks good. Now, I mean, y'all 2A's more of my game plan. That's what I'm kind of locally biased towards. But I think we could just say that the 1A, maybe Hopton. I heard Hopton has a good, strong offense. Pass the ball. So yeah, Hopton. Yours looks pretty good there, Jim.
You think any of these teams can beat Tarboro?
No. Out of the East, probably not. West, maybe. Now I don't know. Now Hopton, if they pass that ball, may give Tarboro some fits. Because Tarboro is more of a ground and pound team. But
right.
I seriously think that Tarboro's still going to be the East.
Okay. Well, I thought
there's one thing I want to mention. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jim, but there's something I want to mention that y'all were talking about earlier. When I was talking about the classifications, a little idea that kind of popped in my head. I don't know if y'all might like this idea or not, but what about geographical classifications? I know something kind of similar like that back in the 80s, 90s, but maybe kind of go back to something like that.
Jim brought up regional, so that would be geographical.
Well, locally geographical.
I'm trying to make a pizza here. This is not a circle, not a very good circle. But I'm doing six slices here. I'm trying to make a pizza with 7 slices. And I think you'd have to do this number here, make it, it's not circle, but probably have to do something like this here and make it kind of go this way here. Do this number right here. Let's see. 2, 3, 4, 5. You see how ugly that pizza is? It has a 7-piece slice pizza. That's what the 7 classifications is going to look like. It's going to be nasty. All right.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's go to the 2A's. I'm going to tell you right now that where Garrett lives, over in that general area, Clinton, Wallace Rose Hill. I know Wallace Rose Hill lost to Havelock, but there's no shame losing to Havelock. Havelock is a top 5 3A in the East.
And they could have beat them.
Yeah.
From what I heard.
Specifically in Garrett's area, Clinton, which you don't live that far from Clinton, Wallace Rose Hill, and I'm going to throw James Keenan in there. Those are 3 really good schools there. I think James Keenan's on the rise.
Jim, I agree with you. But, I'm not going to say I'm going to be biased towards James Keenan or Wallace or Clinton. East Stoughton needs to be kind of thrown up there too, because they are the defending 2A state champions. But when I look at this ranking, you got James Keenan, Clinton, Wallace, Whiteville. Whiteville, I've heard Whiteville is supposed to be pretty stellar. When Whiteville and James Keenan play in not this coming week, but a week after, that's can probably determine where James Keenan will lie really, along the 2A classification this year. Now, Wallace and Clinton, they play this coming week, and that right there is going to also kind of be tailored to tape too. Now, you said there's no shame for Wallace losing to Havelock. That's true because Havelock's always been pretty strong, and Havelock, I've heard, Wallace could have beat them. It was a 1-point loss, and there's no need to hang your head in shame over losing to a team like that, by 1 point. Wallace also got Hargood, the next week after that, and that game has been moved to Thursday night because the Wallace coach, he's got a personal matter to attend to on that Friday, and everybody should play for the Wallace community and the coach for success on that personal matter coming next Friday. I'm not going into detail about that, but I will say that these next weeks will kind of test the mantle for Wallace and James Keenan and Clinton. East Steuben's got West Craven this week. You got West Craven up there too, I see. And that's going to test East Steuben's mantle this week. That West Craven game. Now, as I'm looking at your West ones, you got some good West teams. Shelby, I've heard Shelby has had a pretty big humdinger of a non-conference schedule. Playing, I think, Crest, Kings Mountain, and somebody else. I think they playing them kind of back to back. And so you're looking at a big non-conference schedule there too. The strength of schedules is starting to show kind of the men from the boys, so to speak. Instead of putting the teams that you can get an easy win off of, it's now starting to show that you got to have some competitive games before you get to your regular season. Because if you are 8-2 or 8-3, and I think this happened years ago. If you 8-2, I mean, the chance of you making the playoffs or
well, that was because of the stupid playoff system that we had.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Trask.
Yeah, that happened to a lot of schools. It was a conference would get X number of participants, 1 or 2, and that was it. And so you could have a second place finishing team in the conference that was better than first place. You could have a third place finishing team in a conference that's better than a first place finishing team in another conference. And that conference only gets one seed that year. So just the comment about Shelby, understand that Shelby plays those schools every year. Those are all huge rivals. Kings Mountain, Crest, of course, are county schools, along with Burns. Those are all Cleveland County schools, and they all play each other every year.
I think Shelby plays South Point also, if I remember right.
Yeah, Shelby has a pretty actually, of those 3 schools that we mentioned, all have pretty good schedules. They play some really good, football teams outside of their conference. So,
the 2A East, the one team that I didn't include, and they won the state championship last year, was East Duplin. Mm-hmm. And I kept them out because right now I've still wanted to see a little bit more body of work. Battle Holly's a tremendous coach, and I do expect East Duplin to have a very solid season. They graduated a lot of seniors last year. I want to see how they go through. Probably a lot of people are going to be surprised with Cummings at number 8. and I'll stick with that. They have probably one of the best running backs around. Got some pretty decent depth. I could see them making it to the third rounds of the playoffs. Whiteville is one team that not many people are talking about like they should. Whiteville is a very solid team. I expect them to have a really good season. I can see Whiteville actually winning the 2A East this year. Hereford County, I mean, they know how to move the ball with the best of them, and Hiram's just always a solid program. Now, I wanted to talk about the 2A West. Dale, Reedsville is probably the winningest program in the last 60 years in the state or so. The last
Yeah, I don't think probably. I think they
I
are,
think they
aren't they?
are. Yeah.
I think that's a definite.
I think it's Reedsville 1, Shelby 2. And then if you go to number 9, this is from like 1963 today. If you go to the ninth team on that list, it would be Richmond County, and they didn't start playing until 1972.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
first 45 years, Richmond had, I think, 99 losses. That's a little bit more than 2 losses a season. That's including playoffs.
Right.
But Reedsville, I got them number 2. I think Burns is better at this point. Reedsville, they had a coaching change, although it went from father to son. Yes, Reedsville made it to the state championship game. I'm still going to take Burns over there. I thought Burns was probably the best 2A school last year and just came up a little bit short. Monroe's, that's a team at number 3. They're playing Sam's team, West Charlotte, this week.
Yep.
If West Charlotte beats Monroe, West Charlotte is the real deal.
I personally think they are the real deal. But Monroe's certainly a very good squad. When I look at this list, though, I don't know how much of a gap there is between Burns and Reedsville, but Burns is my pick. Shelby's going to be interesting to see if they're able to move up the list here. I think they potentially can,
Right.
but there was a comment. There was a little bit of discussion on the Facebook page about that. And like the conclusion, time will tell. So we'll see.
The team I did.
Forest Hills will be an interesting one to watch this year, I think.
Oh, I agree. It was Forest Hills that beat Ashbrook like 55-12. I know they had a pretty good win. Salisbury's just athletic,
Right.
And Bunker Hill is a team. When you think of 2A football teams, you don't really think of Bunker Hill being a powerhouse. You don't really think about Chase to being a powerhouse either. But both of these programs are going to have. I think they're going to be really good. Chase had a great season last year. It might be down.
He had a very good season last year. Yeah.
But
earlier in the show when I said Chase, I meant Burns.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said Chase, but anyway.
The team that I left out a few teams, but one I wanted to mention is Maiden. Maiden's always a powerhouse. You just can never.
Yeah, they're always a concern.
Yeah.
Exactly. They play a factor in 2A without question.
Now I want to go over the 3A East, and I'm going to tell you right now, the very top 2 teams. I think there's a separation between Havelock and Rose, but I also think there's a separation between 71st and Havelock. I think Havelock or 71st might be the best team in the East among all 1A, 3, 4As. They're that good.
Okay.
They're going to be loaded. I like them a lot. Havelock, they have Caleb King. He was their former head coach. Came back before he went. He started out at East Carteret, went to Havelock, then went down to South Carolina. He's been a defensive coordinator, I believe, at Havelock. Now he's one of the coordinators. I can't remember the defense or offensive coordinator, but now he's back. Havelock, really good. He replaced Alan Wooten, who is an exceptional coach. I think Alan and Kayla just simply changed roles within Havelock. Great. I mean, it's like having two head coaches. Rose can score with the best of them. The big thing is, can they stop them? Can they stop the other team? A lot of times you see Rose play, and there's like they win, the other team still scored 50 points or 45 points. Northern Nash, they went to the state championship last year. I was watched the game with our governor, Roy Cooper, on the sidelines over at Carter Finley. Uh, Northern Nash, they lost some seniors, but they still have a lot of talent. Here's a team right here, Dale. If you go down to Southport, although this North Brunswick is in Leland, but if you go down to Oak Island anytime, make that trip up to Leland and see North Brunswick play. I think they're going to be really special. Scotland, they beat Southern Durham. Williams, I'm going to tell you right now, Williams is probably the best team in Alamance County. And then you got Cape Fear, which is a very, very solid team in Cumberland County. Any surprises here, Dale, or anybody you think I left out?
No, other than the only thing I'll say is I'm watching Scotland to see if they might be a sneak up the list team.
We will find out because they play a whale of a schedule this year in the non-conference.
Yeah.
And then they have a whale of a schedule in conference. I mean, when you have Richmond County, Pinecrest, Lee County, they got some really good competition. They're going to be really stout in the playoffs. Now let's talk about the West. Dale, I like Crest. I really like Crest. Who would be your number one pick?
Well, in talking with a lot of people, well, I'll say a lot. In talking with a handful of people over the last, let's say 5 days, maybe, I'm always high on Kings Mountain, and I wouldn't count out 4 and 5, South Point and West Charlotte. I think are going to be, South Point's always a noisemaker. And I don't mean to skip over Dudley, but, Dudley's a strong team too. But Crest seems to be a lot of people's favorite right now in the 3A West. And East Lincoln, that was a good ball. That was a good ball team last year. It was a very good ball team. So I don't know if what they'll have this year, but for me, I would really pay attention to see what West Charlotte does this week against Monroe, and they could really be a noisemaker this year. I really believe that. They play a brutal conference. They play in a brutal conference, but I think they're going to come out okay.
Yeah, I agree. And, Oak Grove and J.M. Robinson. J.M. Robinson had a very impressive victory. They beat.
Yeah.
Was it Hickory Ridge they beat?
What was that score?
It was like 47-23 or something like that.
No, it was worse than that, wasn't it?
Or 50-something to 420. I mean, it was lopsided.
Yeah.
And that just surprised me on that. Well, I see Garrett. You looked for a second. Garrett looked like you were freezing up, man. Are you still here? Okay, he's moving. Can you hear us, Garrett?
Looked like he was going to sleep.
That was yesterday.
In the East, who in the East do you like in the 3As?
Well, I
48-41. I thought it was bigger than that.
48-41.
I'm sorry, just 48-41 is what Max Prep says. That doesn't make sense to me.
I thought it was like a blowout for whatever reason.
It was. Sure, it was a blowout. I thought it was something like 42-6. Anyway, I know the Hickory Ridge lost, and I thought it was a bad
And
one.
that surprised me in its own. J.M. Robinson was a two-way school until this year. They moved up. So
Well, I
here
found out I found out what my video problem is. It's having problems doing the background with the green screens. It finally
was it
died.
buffering or something?
I don't know. It just couldn't process it for some reason. So it might be my computer couldn't process it properly to send it up. But anyway, we're back.
So Garrett, who's your picks in the 3A East?
Well, mine, of course, got to be Havelock. They've always been pretty dominant. Cape Fear, I can't go wrong there either. Northern Nash, went to the state championship last year. There's always something about a returning champion. They can fall off the next season, but there's a reason why they're state champions. Or even runner-ups. Scotland, old James Keenan, ex-head coach is down there. So
Which ex-coach?
His name is Will Clark.
Oh yeah, Will used to be up in. I think he was at Crest at one time, wasn't he, Dale?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
And then he left Crest, went to James Keenan, and then left James Keenan, went right back to down in that area to Scotland County. So that's another thing. You can't go. You can't really go wrong with anybody on your list, really. It pretty much can be fun to see how it plays out, though. Out of your West teams, is the same thing. Kings Mountain's pretty much, in my opinion, probably your top dog there out of your West. You can't, but you still can't go wrong with anybody you pick on your ranking. But it's just still early, and you never know. AC. Who you got over there? AC Reynolds.
Now it's going to be down. I don't have them listed, but that's the team that I would keep up. They lost to West Forsyth 8-7 this last week. I don't have them in the top 8, but
right, and that's probably good. I mean, not good, but a right or correct ranking. Not having them there right now.
Yeah. And here's another one. I was going to put down. This is an old Hickory. Yeah. There's always some teams that you leave out, and it's nothing personal. It's just
it's
just
you got to pick somebody.
Yeah,
exactly. First of all, you got to pick somebody. And
now, what about I know a team that beat East Steuben back in 17. High Brighton.
High Brighton is it's a 3A school now, and I'm gonna say from listening to Jeff and Alan, I'd say they're probably going to finish like 4th in their conference. They play.
So they're about a mid-tier team.
Yeah, I'm going to say Watauga, Alexander Central, probably would be, and then it'd probably be High Brighton, then maybe Freedom or whatever.
High Brighton's a school that kind of does like this, if you can see my hands.
Yeah.
So they're not like a Crest that's always there, and a Shelby and a Reedsville, that kind of always in your top. They fluctuate.
And they fluctuate.
I know when they beat East back in 17.
And that's an indication of fluctuation ADM, which of course, even when you're within a classification, if your ADM's fluctuating, your football participation is fluctuating, which impacts your wins and losses.
Mm-hmm.
I know when they beat East Steuben in 17, that was the first time that they ever won a state championship. So, it was kind of after that game, there wasn't nothing to hang your head on either side because whichever team won, it was going to be the first time they ever won a state championship in school history. So that was kind of you hated the fact that it happened to one of your local teams, but you still had to respect the fact that the team that beat them never won it before either.
Right.
All right. This is a good one here.
Yeah, we'll start with the East because this is really the tricky ones here. I'm really high on Pinecrest. I'm high on Cleveland. I really don't know if Cardinal Gibbons is the best in the East. Right now, it'd be hard not to even think of Crowellsville, to be honest with you. Hillside, I put Hillside in here. They got a lot of talent. They always do. But you know what Hillside has this year that they didn't have last year? They have a coach that won the 4A state championship. Terry Knoll ended up over at Hillside. So I've seen him. I've seen Centauri go take a Pamlico squad that had maybe 23 kids to the 1A state championship back in 18, I believe. He just won a state championship 4A for Newbern. Let's see what happens in Hillside. He's the real deal. Going down the list, though, right now I'd say there is a separation between the 4 and 5. This top 4 here are pretty close together. This group right here, Hillside, Leesville Road, any of these teams could make a run. Anybody I'm leaving out, Dale? It's hard to think of 4A teams in the
East. Yeah. No,
I don't have Richmond County in there.
Yeah, but we gotta. They got to produce to get back into that kind of that kind of conversation.
What about Blake?
I like Cardinal Gibbons. I really do. I think there might be some separation, and I don't mean a lot of separation, but I think that's a proper ranking. And how close the others, probably out of the other 3, Pinecrest would be one that I would, I was kind of high on them last year. Would be high on them again this year. Roseville, I think that's a good list, Jim. I can't think of any other teams in the East. The one, Richmond would be a question, but I just, I don't know that we're ready to put them that high.
Yeah, exactly. Garrett, what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I just asked, what about Clayton? Where they stand on this? They back during the pandemic, they did make it to the the third, fourth, or whatever round it was to they're right at the state championship game, where to get a ticket punch to it back during the pandemic. Clayton was, and it was Clayton and Cleveland that was going head to head with that one. I know that Clayton was one of those teams that scrimmaged James Keenan, a couple of weeks ago, and heard they were pretty strong. So I was just kind of curious about Clayton on what all they've done. It looked like I see right here you got them beating Wake. They got looked like they beat Wake Forest 54-42. So they hung some points on the board, but they also gave up a lot of points. So they might be.
Clayton is the 39th power rated school in the state, just as a point of reference by Max Preps.
Clayton's
Is that
That doesn't
Is
mean
that
an
how
awful lot because it's after week 1. So,
You know what? Let's look at the.
well, Dale, is that state? Throughout
that's a,
like
that's a,
all the
that's across,
all the
that's across
classifications, or is
that's
that
across the
just
state.
for just the
No,
4A?
that's across the state. But then there are a lot of 4A teams up ahead of them.
Yeah, if you go
know,
strictly to 4A, if you can filter out to 4A, Clayton's at
yeah,
21. But the data
yeah.
in this stuff right here is still, to me, some of the data is just not correct. It'll weed
No,
out
but
by then.
it's something to reference. It's
Right.
always just something to
Mm,
reference. So, I mean, it kind of backs up why you don't have them in the list.
So
And it,
they got New Bern at number 7. The state I don't even have in the top 8. New Bern
yeah,
lost 11 players.
I don't know. New Bern, and I don't know why I wasn't thinking about New Bern. New Bern's got to be on a bubble.
Yeah,
Um,
they're there.
I would think, but again, let's give it about to week 3
Right.
before we start being able to really analyze what's happening, because you need more games under the belt.
They got
That's for sure.
Millbrook 11,
before
Mossman
Dale starts
12,
this, I'm gonna make you mad. Top 10.
Cleveland 7. Trying to see they don't even have Pinecrest in the top 25 here. Let's see, Pinecrest. They have Pinecrest at 32. So sometimes it's hard to. It'll take a while for uh, their predictions to work
Their
out.
algorithm. Yeah.
So,
It's
New Bern's one of them. Clayton. I'm Clayton. I'll put them in there. They might be in the top 10 or so, but it's just really kind of hard to say. New Bern might be. They could move up to the rankings really fast, but
yeah, let's give it. I wouldn't worry too much about it right now. Right?
oh yeah.
Let them win and move themselves up, right?
And now with the 4A West, I'm gonna tell you right now, Grimsley and Weddington have my eyes. Mallard Creek beating Independence. Before the season, I didn't do a preseason poll. My number one team in the 4A was Independence.
Well,
Butler
my number
was
one team in the 4A ending of last season, for this season was Independence.
right.
So Independence was a letdown Friday or Thursday. They were let down.
So I think they're going to shoot up during this.
And Mallard Creek was, without
Surprise.
question, they exceeded my expectations, and so they're going to lose this Friday night. They don't want to hear that, but they got they're playing a very, very good Georgia team. So hey, playing the probably the best team in the nation. So I don't use this week's game against Mallard Creek, I guess is what I'm saying.
Is that gonna be locally televised?
Is it going to be locally televised? Actually, I think they have to travel back down to Beaufort again. So I would say probably, I don't know. I mean, you might could pick it up somewhere on TV. That's it would be. I wouldn't want to watch it though. it's going to be a brutal game. Unfortunately, it was a brutal game for them last year, and it'll be a brutal game this year.
And you say best. You say they playing the best team in the nation.
They're playing one of the best, I think. So they're playing probably the best public school in the nation. You've got those privates out there in California that
De La Salle.
Yeah, those kinds of schools. that obviously rank in there too, but uh, I think Buford could hang with them without question. But I think I forget the score last year, but it was 50 something to a score or two. It was not a very, it was about what one would expect, and should not be surprised if that happens again this year, because the level of football in Georgia and North Carolina has a giant gap.
Yeah, they're
It's
pros
just,
over there.
yeah, it's a monstrous gap in quality of football.
You know, talking about this number 3 through 8 to me, and you can throw Charlotte Catholic in there also because I think Catholic is really special this year. You can draw these teams out of a hat almost and come up with your own order. The one team that I would say that I don't know enough about is Chambers this year. I have,
Nobody does. We might learn this weekend, you know.
That's the one team there. Huff, I'm waiting for Huff to shock me. Shock the world and go to the state championship. I don't think this is their year, but it seems like every year
Well,
they would be in there.
new head coach this year, so but he
Oh, Huff's got a new head coach.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
What
this is
happened to
not.
Jenkins?
He retired.
Did he? Okay.
So yeah, he is retired, and darn it, I hate Max Preps with their. I don't know if you guys hear that. Hopefully you don't.
Oh, the commercials drives me insane when they do that.
Yeah,
The score
crazy
from the
too.
Buford game last year, guys, was 56-7.
Yeah, that's what a 50 something to one score exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Huff has been why they haven't gotten there already is obviously a question with the kind of talent that they've had. But we'll see. New head coach David Baker. He is from Huff, so he kind of has. I don't know. Maybe he can get that motivation, that extra motivation that squad needs to be able to rise up to that next level. They have the talent. They might have more talent on their team than Jim, the other teams that you have on your list there. They might have the most, talent. But when you look at like a Weddington, who is my favorite right now, you just have good solid team, from coaching to everything. Just the whole mix is solid, and that has the motivation, the community, everything. And I don't know what Huff has missed from that mixture of making it over that hump, but they certainly haven't.
So I put Audrey Kell and Olympic. They're not in the same ballpark with these other teams, but I think, and even you can throw in Palisades. There are some really good football in Mecklenburg County among teams.
So Palisades is interesting because they gave West Charlotte a game they shouldn't have given them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm gonna leave reserve on whether a Palisades should get a conversation with AK and Olympic.
But they're up and coming.
But AK and Olympic, they will have good. They can have good seasons, but just as was shown in the playoffs, Olympic was looking great last year, and then when they stepped on the field with Independence, granted it was a nasty game, it was like stepping into a wood chipper.
Yeah.
That's what happened to Olympic, and so that level of football between your Independences and your Mallard Creeks and your Huffs and your Chambers and those squads and these teams that are in the South Met Conference is huge. So,
And here's one game I wanted to mention now to you. A lot of people were really high on Reagan High School,
uh
and Marvin Ridge did a beatdown on them, 142-27. That
Marvin Ridge is a school, and I don't know if it applies this year, but Marvin Ridge is a school that has good teams and has been competitive over the years. So, I mean, just a I think a statement about Marvin Ridge. They could be a pretty good team this year.
right.
Them and Weddington have a really nice rivalry between the two, and it plays some very good football games.
I'm waiting to see about Mooresville. That's another team that Davie County's got a good football program. They're going to be very competitive this year, and they beat Davie 31-24. Again, I think Mooresville is like in that third tier below, just kind of like Ardrey Kell and Olympic.
Probably down there in that group with the Ardrey Kells
Yeah.
and Olympics and those kind of teams. Yeah, I could see that.
So
they could be a team though that can step up.
there was let's see if I can find. We'll go to the football rankings here. There was something that I wanted to talk to you.
Go to rankings. There you go.
Let's go. I'm gonna go to the 4A, and if I can find it, I don't want 1A. I want 4A. So I want to look for this team here. I want to talk to you. They're a team that a lot of us thought would potentially win a state championship. Myers Park.
No.
I mean, I'm talking about they were in the hunt 2-3 years ago.
They were in the hunt,
and then it's like the oxygen left the room.
So they. This is one of those karma situations where Scott Chadwick leaves. Mark Harmon takes over. He was the assistant head coach. He took them the furthest Myers Park has ever been. They were undefeated and lost in the playoffs to Chambers. And then they did not give him the head coach job. They didn't make him the permanent head coach. So Mark took over the job. I think Chadwick left the day before the season started, and that was the year we played in the spring. And Myers Park had all these out-of-state players on the team. They had a lot of local talent that had moved in legitimately,
right?
But they had some recruiting situations take place, and they just fell apart. That destroyed. They ended up. Coach left and went to Texas, and it was just bad for the program. And the guy who took over the next season, of course, last season did not perform. They just fell to the floor.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you put your finest crystal up on a shelf, and it fell to the floor and shattered. That's what happened to Myers Park. I don't know if they're going to come back either. So
if you're in Charlotte on Friday the 8th, Richmond, they're playing Richmond. Richmond's another team that needs wins. That's a program that's kind of, everybody expects them to be dominant every year. They just the They don't have
Myers Park's playing Richmond.
They're playing Richmond on the 8th.
Yeah, I don't know who else is playing on the 8th.
But that's a team. That's a game though. That's I think it means a lot to both programs. They're going to be hungry. But look at Richmond's schedule. They played 71st, got blown out, 41-13. They play Butler this weekend or this Friday. Butler, is going to be loaded for bear after losing to Rollsville.
Yeah, a game they thought they would win.
Right.
A lot of people thought they would win. So,
and then they're going to play Cardinal Gibbons. I mean, I think Richmond's going to be 0-3 when they go into Myers Park.
There's a good chance. I would. My money would be on that.
And
no disrespect to Richmond, but that's a brutal 2 weeks there before they get to Myers Park.
So you got those 3 losses or 3 potential losses, and you got to play Pinecrest, you got to play Lee County, you got to play Scotland.
They got a brutal schedule.
It's a brutal schedule. I mean, the thing about it is people can complain about their coaching. The coaching is not the problem. They got one of the best coaching staffs in the state.
Yeah, I believe they have a fine coaching staff.
Yeah. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So Dale, where are you going to be this weekend or this Friday?
Well, we started out the show talking about that, and most likely I'll go to the West Charlotte Monroe game, it being the first game in the new stadium. I had thought about Weddington and Ardrey Kell because I would like to see Weddington, and I like the coaching staff and the atmosphere over at Ardrey Kell, but you only open a stadium once, and
Right.
I'm a West Side guy, so yeah, that's most likely where I'll go.
I might go see Jordan in Southern Alamance. I got to stick clear. I was thinking about going to go to McLeansville and watch Northeast Guilford play Western, but I'm not going to have time. Orange Chapel Hill, I can't watch one of those games again. That's going to be brutal. Chapel Hill beat Orange easily. This is a game I thought was interesting to see. I just like going to Guilford County, to be honest with you.
Right.
Granville Central, Cedar Ridge, that's right in my back alley. That's like 2 mangy dogs, going after a bone. And trying to go down my list a little bit. Can't remember if Montgomery Central is going to be in my area or not. They are. I might go to this game here. And the reason why is their coach, I like him a lot. He used to be the head coach over at Pinecrest, Metzger, Coach Metzger.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see if any other ones are placed here. Eastern.
Yeah, I'm looking to see what
Williams Eastern
other
Guilford
game. Come on, Max Preps.
See what I'll do. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
I was making a recliner. I don't know if you ever do that, where you lean back in your chair and put your feet up on your desk. So I got this this thing where you can pull it out, and if you want to write something down, you can. It has this extra space. It makes a great recliner.
Just looking to see here. Come on. A great game this week Shelby and Burns. I mean, excuse me,
Oh, that's
Crest and
going to be
Burns.
that's probably the best in the state.
Yeah, that's going to be a knockdown drag out. And of course, they Crest plays Burns this week and Shelby next week. Two good weeks of football and in Cleveland County just with Crest football. So,
Right.
but that Crest Burns game, that I think, yeah, that might be the bet, a good shot at being that. Let me see what Kings Mountain schedule is over the next few weeks. So they've got Cox Mill this week. Interesting. I think that's kind of a breather for them. Then they got Burns and Huss. So.
Well, cool. I'll tell you what, Dale. I'm probably going to go run and do a couple things. I want to eat a little bit. I was feeling a little bit. I'm not going to say nauseous, but I felt a little bit jittery and didn't want to eat before the show. But Dale, it was always a pleasure, and I hope we can have it enjoy this for the next 14, 15 weeks. So
there we go.
All right, Dale.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
From me and Dale, everybody have a good evening, and we'll catch up with you next week.
All righty. So, yeah,